Welcome to Backstory and Beyond with your host, Ward Kampf, seeker, innovator, and president of Northwood Retail. As Ward travels the country, he'll share the industry insights he's gained over a 3 decades-long retail career, introduce you to trailblazing business leaders and disruptive founders, and uncover the real deal about some of the greatest cities in the world. This week, Ward is in Dallas with restaurateur, food hall creator, and Front Burner Society founder Randy DeWitt. They'll discuss the necessity of pivoting with market changes, how innovation requires exploration, and how entertainment, experiences, and great food can combine to create a destination venue. All that and more on this episode of Backstory and Beyond.
We're in Dallas today. I want to welcome Randy DeWitt. Randy's been an entrepreneur, a restaurateur. He's been an innovator. He's created one of probably the most innovative, creative food service concepts with just great DNA and a soul to it. And so, Randy, I want to welcome you. Starting from the beginning, kind of the backstory of Randy and starting your career in Dallas, I started to hear about you. You had Half Shell, and then it was Rockfish. Just talk about kind of, everybody has a backstory, right?
Yeah. Ward, you may not know this about me, but I did grow up here in Dallas. But then I left, lived on the West Coast, was in the Air Force, moved to Charleston, South Carolina, found my way into commercial real estate, worked for a Walmart developer. That's where I cut my teeth, I think, on just the understanding of shopping centers, deal making for sure. I always gravitated towards the restaurant. So it was Walmart, Pizza Hut or something on the pads. And I always wanted to do the restaurant deals, Right. I would get to rub shoulders with those people. Found myself moving to Washington, D.C., going to work for a mall management company, basically, First Washington Management.
Yeah, sure.
Didn't like it. It was a numbers crunching job. I was supervising the leasing people by that time.
Right.
It just wasn't me. I just didn't like it. I was itching to do something that I would have ownership of. So one day in 93, I just made a big decision, bought a motorcycle, sold my car, got rid of my furniture, rode around the country for 6 months, and did the deep think, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? I was 32 years old, I think. I decided I was going to open a restaurant, but the safest place for me to do that would be Dallas, Texas, where I had friends and family. So I rode my motorcycle back into Dallas in 93, found a place for lease in Snyder Plaza across from SMU.
Yep.
And one of the last deals I worked on in Washington, D.C. was Starbucks. But I was privy to the margins that Starbucks was earning on their stores. And I thought, oh my God, coffee. There's no high-end coffee. There's no, nobody doing this in Texas. Starbucks will never come there. So I opened up a coffee shop in that space. 6 months later, Starbucks opened their first Texas store in Snyder Plaza. Right.
On the corner, on the Hillcrest,
on the Hillcrest side, but
right.
Close enough.
Yep.
My business, the whole bean business, just evaporated. Everybody was enamored with Starbucks, and rightfully so. They executed so well, and so I kept the lease, changed the concept to Half Shell's Oyster Bar, and the coffee bar was named Miss Shell's because I'd fallen in love with this girl. We weren't married yet, and when we had to close it down and morph into seafood, I realized I never call her Michelle. I always call her Shell.
Right.
So we call it Shells, apostrophe S, and then had to add the half in order to satisfy a trademark issue. So Half Shells, it opened up. It was immediately successful on a very small scale, but we were making money, and I decided to start growing it. Eventually morphed that concept into Rockfish and built 5 of those and went from 5 to 25 locations in about 2 years. No one should ever do that, especially me at that point in my career. We kept the 10 successful Rockfish, but then 15 of them, I had to either close down, cancel leases, negotiate out of them with landlords, or create a new brand. And so we were stuck with 4 locations that I just couldn't seem to get rid of, and we're paying, dead rent on closed down restaurants. And I looked at my wife and said, we need to create a new brand that can work in these demographics. We went into the Hooters across the highway from our location, and it's busy. That big sign over the bar said coldest beer in town. So I ordered a couple beers for us, and it was kind of lukewarm. And I looked at my wife and I said, Shell, we're going to do something inspired by this, but do it better. So we created Twin Peaks, gave it this mountain theme. I married a girl from Colorado. She loves the mountains. Just seemed natural.
And then from there, it just feels like you went into polished casual, and you've just ridden that
way. We did, yeah.
I mean, it was fine dining or steak.
I started in casual dining with Rockfish, and the business was good. Casual dining was thriving in the 90s. By the early 2000s, you could already see it was starting to fray. I mean, there was just too much of it.
It was commodity.
And too many of the popular, really large brands had kind of like developed almost the same menu. But at the same time, you couldn't ignore what was happening in fast casual. So we created our first fast casual brand, Velvet Taco. And we just filled out the menu with classic, fun cuisine from around the world, globally inspired, menu items that were reinterpreted as tacos. And it just captured the imagination of the foodie world in Dallas. Our original Velvet Taco was 1,300 square feet. And at the peak, before we cannibalized it with all the other locations we built around it, it did over $7 million in 1 year. Yeah, with very little to go.
Well, I think one of the secrets, we used to go there when our kids were younger, and it was that you stayed open late, which nobody did that really served booze, because
there was Whataburger and Denny's.
Right. But you guys were smart enough to do that.
Well, when we created our food hall, we kind of looked at it the same way. We said, people freely spend money from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And, you can legally serve alcoholic beverages during that time, so why not? So that's what we brought to our food hall company as well.
So let's talk about the food hall.
When we got the opportunity to develop our first food hall, it was just up the street here at Legacy West, and we were approached by the developer before they even took down the land and said, come up with a big idea. I need an anchor on the north end of the project, and, you're the most creative group I've ever worked with, so come back to me with the biggest idea. If we like it, we'll do it together. And that gave us the lead time because you know how long those projects take to put together. And so I took Jack Gibbons, my partner, and we literally started seeking out the most exciting large venues that combine food and entertainment in some way. We found ourselves in Amsterdam just by happenstance, and a couple of the team members we were traveling with had already gotten up early, and they said, "Oh my God, you've got to come see this cool place. It's a food hall in an old train depot station called Food Holland." So we hopped in a cab, went over there. I think we got there just in time for lunch. We didn't leave until they closed about 11 p.m. that night. And it was a nice little food hall that had a bar in the center. They had an entertainer come in and just play a solo guitar and stuff at night, put candles out on the tables. Jack and I looked at each other and said, we know what to do now. So we came back and went through our creative process. And when we were far enough along, we showed it to Femi and said, we want to do a food hall combined with a live music venue, an outdoor beer garden, and put a brewery in it too. And he said, I love it. Let's go talk to my partner, Invesco.
Right. Invesco's been a great partner of ours at Northside.
So selling them on the idea took a little bit more time, but we got it done, and that project's up and running and super successful, and we're excited. And as we're building it, we were introduced to 5th and Broadway by the original developer in Plano here at Legacy West, and said, I don't know how you're going to fit this in 5th and Broadway, but here's our site plan, here's our, schematic design so far. If you want to take all the space you want on the second level, I'll give it to you. So come back with an idea. And I guess sometimes we bite off a lot and had to chew on it for a while, but we did figure out how to program all that space as well as the rooftop. And as you know, you guys are our landlord there now. That food hall it's probably the highest volume food hall in the United States. It's probably the largest also.
I think one of the things that's interesting, just kind of walking back, when you opened Legacy West, it was bumpy, right? You guys opened it, a lot of trial and error, right? You
Absolutely.
opened it, and then all of a sudden, I started hearing around town, that Randy and these guys are doing this food hall, and it's going to be the anchor. And, food hall was this buzz term, and I think you guys made it really simple. And I think I read where you said, we're just going to out-execute everyone. And so, it's easy to say that. It's easy to put that on a business plan and say we're going to do that. But I think, when you open that, you've got to find the balance between these locals, these startups. It's all kind of a startup business, right? And so you're the insurgent, so you're doing this no matter what. You were in Amsterdam, and you and Jack saw that, and you're like, this is going to work. We're going to take it back. We're going to do this no matter what. And then you're trying to run the business. So now you're at the point, in Legacy, you've been given this shot. You've gone from insurgent to running the business, trying to figure out, the right mix. You're playing landlord and restaurateur and developer and creativity, right?
And the music venue.
Right.
We had never done anything like that in our past, not on that scale anyway, with that level of artists. And so we had to learn.
And then you run all the liquor sales, booze, et cetera, kind of through you guys. So, hats off for being able to create this.
Well, I think what really helped Ward was, we're restaurateurs at heart.
Right.
We're not landlords.
Right.
We're not really developers, like you guys can do, or, Dean Oliver does, ground up. We don't have the capital or the patience for that, honestly.
Right.
But we can play a role in a project like 5th and Broadway. And, think about it. That food hall will be there forever.
Right.
And if it's properly managed, it will always pay the rent.
Right.
And there will be failures within the food hall. We've already turned over 2 of our food stalls. And what have we been open now? 2.5 years, coming up on 3 maybe.
Yeah.
I had a little delays with the pandemic, but
talk about that. You're right. You're right in the middle of building out.
Most of it was we were under construction during that time frame, and it was just delays, and then all the materials shortages and kitchen equipment that was not working its way through the supply chain, and we had to make a lot of changes on the fly. And, one of the cool things about the food hall being operated by us, which, the parent company's FB Society,
right.
We provide purchasing for almost everyone in our food halls. Prince's Hot Chicken, for instance,
right.
The inventor of Nashville Hot Chicken,
right.
When we showed them what they could get the same quality chicken for on our purchasing contract, that was that kind of tipping point where they're like, oh my God, we have to do this deal.
Right.
So, being able to help the food stall operators in ways like that. And then our operating team, they're all restaurant people. Our management team, they're not property managers. These are restaurant managers. And, Prince's, when they opened, was so popular. It was taking 30 minutes to get food out.
Right.
And so our ops team focused on that food stall. We put in kitchen display systems and, these timing systems. And
then the other one, I think that's really come on the scene is Tiffany with Roots.
Yeah. Super proud of that story. She was a celebrity chef, had been on TV, won Top Chef and things like that, but didn't really have the operating background. She was a chef.
Right.
But she got her arms around operations through opening up in our Legacy West Food Hall, and just became an operator. Now she has her own standalone restaurant and is phenomenally successful there. So we like that. It's almost like learning how to run your own restaurant with some training wheels,
Right.
when you open up in one of our food halls, because our ops team is there to support you and help you.
I mean, I would think, you starting from the ground up, seeing that.
Oh, I wish I would have started my first restaurant in a food hall. There just were none. That was 30 years ago.
So, you look around and, you see the execution of food halls. There aren't a ton that have been done successfully in the U.S.
I would agree.
A lot of ideas. I don't think there's 10 or 20 that.
No, a lot of them just don't work. I don't know what it is about my background and, the business acumen I've gained over the years. But,
right.
I mean, I see those and I go, I know that's not going to work.
Right.
We get asked all the time, will you take over this 10,000 square foot, food hall they own? And I look at it, and so often my advice is just shut it down and cut it up into space, restaurant and retail space, because it's just not going to work.
Right.
I mean, we believe very strongly that, food halls, at least in North America, New York, there's some exceptions. You can do small food halls, but most of them, no. You can't really have a successful food hall that's a destination if all you have is 5 or 6 food stalls in a bar. There's just not enough reason to go, and that's why we added the entertainment to our business model. That way we can drive extra PM traffic through ticketed events. We can raise enough money to bring in serious artists that people, will drive across town to come see. And that drives sales to our bars and our food stalls for the extra 2 or 3 hours in the evening that most food halls die out about 7:30, 8 p.m. It gets pretty quiet in them. Ours are just picking up steam in those hours.
In the fall, you guys had Jelly Roll on the Sky Deck, and, he was out there. He was a name, and then he won, 3 CMTs.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the hottest country music. Hats off to you guys for being able to attract him. In Nashville, I think you have to elevate just because
you have the access to the artists there, and you also have, that truly is Music City. I know Austin wants to be Music City, but in reality, it's Nashville.
It is.
Austin's great, for live music, but it's more of a grassroots thing.
Right.
The really top artists in the companies that are managing those artists,
they're all there.
They're all there. And they've all discovered Assembly Hall at 5th and Broadway, and they've seen our rooftop venue. It's the largest rooftop on Broadway in Nashville. We can get about 1,600 people up there, I think, for a ticketed event. And, we get approached by the management groups during CMA weeks. It's all booked solid with artists that we didn't have to go get. We're being called by the management companies behind those artists saying, we want our artist on your stage this week so we can showcase them in front of the industry. And it's great because, we're getting essentially free entertainment and the public's invited. The other thing besides just entertainment is we always layer in a full service restaurant or two in our food halls.
Right.
In Legacy, in a bit of a misguided attempt to mitigate risk, I separated it and did 2 separate leases, 2 different financial entities behind them, and we built the Haywire restaurant, which was not exactly a new brand, but it was a new brand name, and certainly the idea of doing a 3-level restaurant was a new thing for us to do. But it works so well being part of the food hall because we designed the 2nd floor main dining room patio to look down on the music venue.
Right.
And people love it. The guests love sitting out there watching a concert and eating a big steak.
What's crazy about that restaurant is you go from the 1st level, people are having drinks, you go to the 2nd level, it opens up. But also the interior, the teepees, and just the way the one thing I think you guys give is an experience, whether it's 60 vines, the way it's designed with the glass,
we call it the greenhouse.
Yeah. But it's it's an experience, right?
Yeah, we took the management team on a retreat before the restaurant was fully designed, and we chose to go out to Marfa, Texas, and stayed at Cosmico, and which was trailers and teepees and stuff like that. It's a hotel you can kind of camp out at, and we were so enchanted by that vision of Texas. We decided that's what Haywire was going to be about. It's more about Marfa than it is Dallas.
Well, there's got to be inspiration, And I like I said, I think you can rent some of those sometimes, or
we do. People book them for all-night parties and stuff like that. When the Country Music Awards were just here in Frisco, Texas, just up the road, we had that rooftop booked out all weekend with artists. I guess I can talk about them now, but Miranda Lambert and Lainey Wilson.
Which is the hottest star other than Taylor Swift. She's probably the hottest female act out there right now. Her
management company booked out the entire restaurant for her. And we just had so much fun. It's such a cool thing for the staff to be able to participate in, when you can get those events. And you get those events when you create the experience,
right?
And so we're blessed with that. It's a great symbiotic relationship we have with some of the music artists and our restaurant brands and food halls now.
We've got a jewelry store in Austin, Nina Baronato, and Lainey Wilson, before the CMT, she came in and just bought the place out. And Nina was just like, she will be one of the biggest stars. But she also said she's one of the nicest people she's met. And she's dealt with Lizzo, Beyonce, all these. Not saying they're not nice. She just said Lainey was, you could tell was special. So do you ever step back and say, wow?
I think I should, Ward, mostly.
Or are you just on to the next play?
I'm just leaning in with the management team going, how can we improve? How can we make this run smoother, better, more efficiently? I mean, we stay really close to the fire. I don't really find myself stepping back and looking what we've built at very often. But when you do, you're right, or someone like yourself points it out to me, it is impressive what we've created.
I mean, it's I think all of us are wired just on to the next play, on to the next thing. Let's grow it faster. Let's do it faster. Let's do it better. But there is, every once in a while, you got to step back and say, hey, it's not how you're wired, and you don't live on that, but you got to get better every day. And I think the one thing too is these things are super CapEx wise, operationally. This may be one of the hardest things to operate that I've seen. And I've seen a lot of casualties in this space in the last 8 or 10 years.
I will fully admit to that. This is not for the faint of heart. It's not. You can't pluck a manager out of a casual dining Applebee's or Chili's and say, go run this monstrosity food hall that's doing well over $1 million a week in sales, and expect that person to be successful. So we have really high-level operators running the food halls, and we know how stressful their job is. So, the company provides support. We provide all those resources for them, and a talented manager can run one, but it's not every restaurant manager out there that can execute at that level.
Well, I'd say, kind of speaking on the topic of legacy, what I found interesting, I started to hear when luxury tenants wanted to be up there, Tiffany, Louis Vuitton, Gucci.
Yeah.
They're now right outside the food hall, but I heard every one of them when they were touring are like, we want to be right across from the food hall.
That shocked me as well.
And you're in it.
I was amazed at the leasing that went on across the street from Legacy Hall 2 years after we opened.
Right. It shows you how the world's changing. They didn't want a department store.
Right.
They could see the big picture. They wanted something different, and they wanted a lot of people. And, I mean, that's the crazy thing. You walk out of there and you see those storefronts. By the way, they're doing they are wildly successful.
That's what I hear. The guy behind that leasing, Mark Macinter, has become a good friend.
Yeah, it's a good friend.
He would call me, at the last minute usually and say, hey, can you come up to Legacy and tour somebody for me? I go, who is it? And he goes, it's the people that, own Golden Goose sneakers. I'm like, can I get some free shoes? I'll be there.
Yeah. Well, think about it. You went from fun place on a plan with just an idea that you're handed, and you fully executed it, and then you're dealing in the luxury world. That's, to think, from somebody handing you a plan saying, hey, come up with an idea, having to go model it, to all of a sudden you're entertaining luxury retailers in Frisco, Texas. That just says a lot about the power of you, what you've created. So, kind of as you walk through Dallas, just getting to the Randy side, what are places you like to go eat? Or, are you just one of those guys that loves to see concepts, tries things all the time as you travel?
Oh, yeah. It's so rare when I go back to the same restaurant twice. Here in Dallas, there's a new restaurant opening every other day.
Right.
My wife and I love to try new restaurants. We try to get there as close to the opening as we can. So sometimes you can catch the owners or the chefs still walking around the dining room, asking people for feedback and things. And we really enjoy that. We're planning our leisure travel around food and wine. It's not just, my day job. It's our lifestyle, which is great because, I get asked, I'm old enough now. There's young people, they're all like asking for career advice and things. And I just said, I say the same thing to everyone, find your passion and build your career around that. And when you do that, you will be successful. Sometimes success isn't a lot of money if your passion is, helping underprivileged kids or something, but you'll have the most rewarding career when you combine your passion and your work life.
I think that's true. I think there's a lot of kids, they get their first or second job, they're miserable.
Yeah.
They think that's the only job. They can't find their passion. I think that's tough, But I think if you're passionate about it, it sounds like you're fortunate enough to make a lifestyle around what you love doing. So it doesn't feel like work, I'm sure.
Not at
constantly, all. And your brain's probably just constantly on to the next, onto the next, onto the next. So, we talk about the real deals of Dallas. What are some of if somebody came to Dallas, what's the one thing you would tell them to go see? Is it the, library? Is it the Arboretum?
There's just so much.
There's a lot.
If they're into sports, look at the teams we have. If they're into art, we have world-class museums. If it's cultural stuff, we have great theater. It's all here. But what Dallas really excels at is shopping and dining. We have restaurants here that are as good as I've been to anywhere in the world, and most of them are locally owned.
Right.
The really good ones anyway, and they're affordable.
Right.
I travel most often, repetitive travel is New York, LA, Aspen, Colorado. That way we have a vacation home up there, and we love skiing, and we go to the food and wine event every summer. So I'm always stunned at the difference in menu prices between Texas and New York, LA, and certainly Aspen.
Right.
Denver's a little more affordable.
Right.
But wow, the menu prices are just breathtaking.
Well, I think one thing Dallas is good at, we're consumed with consumption. This is a town where people love to eat, they love to shop. We don't have a beach.
Right.
People either go to Colorado or they go to the West Coast or they go to New York City or they go to Europe. But it's a pretty captured audience.
Restaurants are really our recreation here. Yeah.
Any place you just think stands out that's not, you have a lot of the successful ones. Was there any place?
Oh gosh, Ward. We live in Highland Park, and it's a short walk to Highland Park Village.
Yeah.
The kids like to go upstairs and have sushi there, but that's just the neighborhood for us. I've always been a big admirer of Hillstone restaurants.
100%.
The Honor Bar right there. That's our lunchroom almost.
We were in LA 2 nights, and we went to Honor Bar twice. And you've got all this food and beverage. It's simple.
It's simple, but and the menu's super limited, but they absolutely execute. So it's a fun place for me to take younger restaurant managers, maybe that haven't experienced that, and say, look, this is how good a chicken sandwich can be.
Right.
Just if you execute. Exactly.
Right. And then lastly, what do you think the hidden gem of Dallas is? Is it a restaurant? Is it, is it White Rock?
I think it's the Katy Trail, honestly.
I think it's one of the most significant things
Yeah.
this city has done over the last 15 or 20 years.
Absolutely.
I think you're dead on.
We need more of that in Dallas, more civic leadership making those things happen, because that can't happen just organically.
Right.
Our local governments have to have the vision, the desire, and the will to make projects like Katy Trail.
What that's done for the city, the young kids, my daughter lives down, right off Knox. And I mean, what it's done, to connect young and old, and generations, and just what it's done for the city. I think you're right. I think the Katy Trail.
One of our favorite weekend activities in the daytime is to walk the dog down the Katy Trail, end up at Katy Trail Ice House, text our daughters if they're in town, and say, come on over. We already have a table.
Right.
And we'll just sit there for hours, enjoy the music, conversation. You see people, it's just.
I've got a lot of friends that do that. They walk their dog, they'll meet their kids, or just they'll go. But I think you're dead on, though, about it being the hidden gem.
Yeah.
And then just lastly, as we're wrapping up, how do we find you guys?
Yeah, we aren't big believers in a master, company website. I'm sure we have one, but it's probably fbsociety.com. But, our brand, we push the brands out first, let those be the consumer-facing way to engage with our company, our concepts. So any of them, it's pretty intuitive. 60vines.com, whiskeycake.com, I Declare, our Southern cuisine restaurant, Mexican Sugar, Velvet Tacos, now paired up with private equity and on a mission to get to 100 restaurants.
Right. Great. Appreciate the time, and thanks for spending your Friday with me. Yeah, thank you.
It was fun, Ward.
This has been Backstory and Beyond, hosted by Ward Kemp. To learn more about Northwood Retail or the destinations from today's episode, visit backstorybeyond.com.